The beauty of sport again on display in Atlanta. On the final day of the season, a season highlighted by heartbreak. The lad finally earns his moment. Tommy Fleetwood, proof that if you knock enough, that door will open. It's win number 1 for the fan favorite, Tommy's time at the Tour Championship. CBS golf analyst Rick Gehman and Patrick McDonald in with reaction to win number 1 for Tommy. Feels like we've been here before, but he's never gotten there. Poetry sort of in the season that was filled with heartbreak, guys, but you put enough pucks on net, one's going to go in. Rick Gehman, how do you feel about Tommy's first win?
I feel great for Tommy, and I think it is obviously well-deserved. I mean, if you zoom out on this, he was the 3rd best player in terms of strokes gained in 2025, and by far the best without a victory on the resume behind just Scottie Scheffler and Rory McIlroy. He's had so many close calls in his career, and he's been beaten in some pretty dramatic fashions. I go back to thinking about the putt that Nick Taylor dropped on him a couple years ago in a playoff at the Canadian Open that ended in Nick Taylor literally becoming the logo of that event. And then Keegan stamps another Travelers Championship on him just a few months ago. It was nice to see Tommy finally break through. That Memphis meltdown from just 2 weeks ago had to have been very fresh for Tommy, especially as he was, I believe it was a 2-up with 3 to play, the exact same margin as it was 2 weeks ago in Memphis. So for him to overcome this and finally turn this 0 into a 1 on the PGA Tour is obviously a great thing for Tommy and for the PGA Tour in general.
Yeah, awesome to see. There's nothing better than the chase, and Tommy Fleetwood, it felt like was a picture-perfect ending for the PGA Tour season in 2025. You think about Rory McIlroy starting the year, winning the Masters, Scottie Scheffler kind of going through the middle of the season with 2 major championships, the Keegan Bradley drama as well, and then at the end, it was all about Tommy's chase for his first one. And Rick is totally right. Statistically, Tommy Fleetwood's been the 3rd best player this year, and he's been the best version of himself. I think if you could knock this guy throughout his career, people will look to the winning, but I would say he hasn't really put himself in that position all too often. And he knocked on the door there at the Travelers Championship. He knocked on the door there at the St. Jude Championship, and he finally knocked it over here at Eastlake. And I think it's just really indicative of not really rushing to judgment on these guys, saying they're never going to win, and realizing how hard it can be to win on the PGA Tour, even for a world-class player like Tommy Fleetwood. So could not be happier for this guy.
You know, we root for the story here on HQ, and what a story this is. Sporting stories often lead with adversity and finish with this sort of triumph, and that's how our season ends. We'll get to some of the broad strokes on format and what this week meant beyond, but I do want to delve a little bit deeper here on Tommy. I don't care the context of the win. It's win number 1, but Rick, do you take any issue or offer any asterisk with win number 1 coming in a limited field event, only 30 players, 29 other competitors? What do the numbers tell us about the value of this win for Tommy?
The value is interesting. We were kind of chatting before this about the strength of field, and the OWGR, they use a cumulative approach. So basically, the smaller the field, even if it is a deep field, it does not rise to a major championship or even some of these signature events because of those 30 players. But absolutely no asterisks here. When you go out and you beat every golfer that is put in front of you, you get a win. And I am cool with that. I've got plenty of issues with the format and the PGA Tour and all that fun stuff, but Tommy Fleetwood started at even par with 29 of the best players on the PGA Tour, and after 4 rounds, he was the guy with the lowest score. It's a great victory. It is one where he can say he outdueled Scottie Scheffler and Patrick Cantlay down the stretch, and even as these guys were trying to chase him down on Sunday around Eastlake, he was swatting them all away. So he should be very proud of this one. No asterisks needed tonight.
Yeah, I don't think we were having this conversation when Tiger Woods came back and won, right? And so I don't think we should be having. Yeah, exactly. Take one away from Tiger, and then we can take some away from the old timers as well, who won in a field of 3 or 4. It seemed like if you go down Wikipedia. But I'm totally in line with Rick. Tommy Fleetwood beat some of the best players in the world, starting from ground zero. Whenever you beat whenever you beat Scottie Scheffler in a tournament, that seems like a victory in its own right. So I don't care if it was only 30 players. I don't care if it was the Tour Championship. Tommy Fleetwood, a winner on the PGA Tour, and it's something you'll never be able to take away from this guy.
You know, we're always looking to the next thing. We'll have a full Ryder Cup preview coming up, but the next thing for Tommy in terms of his career should be more wins with the quality of play he's put forth this season, Patrick. Is this that proverbial dam breaking? Do you see more for Tommy moving forward? What sort of confidence does he take from this win?
You have to imagine, right? Especially with the schedule this guy plays throughout the DP World Tour and on the PGA Tour as well. And this is the best version of Tommy Fleetwood that we have ever seen. And now we get a confident Tommy Fleetwood who might not have the scar tissue, or he might not remember it coming down the stretch. He'll remember all the good times. He'll remember outdueling Patrick Cantlay on this back nine. And so skill set wise, it has always been there for Tommy Fleetwood. It was just that 5-inch fairway in between the ears that was the question mark. And I was really impressed with the way he played down the stretch. A lot of aggressive shots, a lot of aggressive swings, but also on 15, taking a little something off that 5-iron as well, where he could have gone with a hard 6 and finding dry land there. I know he made bogey, but a pivotal point in this final round as well. And so you would think it is floodgates opening. You would think major championship contention, more major championship contention, and perhaps a major championship is down the line for Tommy Fleetwood, because he is just so rock steady and so solid now that he has the putter figured out, switching to that spider at the RBC Heritage and really just rolling it beautifully throughout this week.
I thought this was a much more strategic final round from Tommy Fleetwood than previous final rounds that we've seen from him in the past. I don't know if it's true or not, but it seemed like he was more in tune with his position on the leaderboard. He took a couple of spots, especially around the turn, just playing for par or just playing for bogey to avoid having to put a big number and potentially risking his championship on the line. For him to get out of number 8 with a par, I thought it was a splendid display of strategy and being in the moment and understanding where you stand in the ebbs and flows of this championship. So that is something that I want to see him take on moving forward. It's not something that we've seen him really put into play a lot in previous Sundays. And maybe it's not the floodgates, Joe, but it's win luck, things starting to kind of fall into his direction a bit more in the future for sure.
Yeah, celebration in order, and an easy man to celebrate as Tommy Fleetwood collects his first career victory. Rick, you did allude to some issues with the format, and PGA Tour CEO Brian Rolep said sweeping changes are coming once again. We found out in the midst of this season that there'd be no starting strokes. I guess the way I want to ask the question is, what did we identify today other than the player that was best over these 4 days? And do you have an answer for me moving forward, Rick, on what this might look like when we get to a tour championship?
So I believe most of this gets solved with just a little bit of a change in verbiage. You can't spend, 8 months saying the race for the season-long FedEx Cup, or we are going to crown the season-long champion. That's what they say every single day on the PGA Tour. Well, it's not really true. You're just crowning the guy who is the best over 4 rounds, and that's okay too. We just have to kind of adjust the verbiage a little bit. So I would like to make a harder distinction between regular season and playoffs. I would like to just get rid of FedEx Cup points as soon as we get into the playoffs and only advance the top 50 from Memphis based on the leaderboard in Memphis, and then do the same for the BMW Championship. Just get rid of the FedEx Cup points in general once we get into the playoffs. And then you have 2 really distinct seasons, basically, like most other North American sports. I think it would be a lot easier to understand. It would be less confusing, and we would never even have to have these conversations about who was the best player all season long when, hey, Tommy Fleetwood was the best player in the playoffs.
Well, if you have that question, I don't think it would linger long, because if we're racing for anything, one man, he lapped the field and then some. 14 consecutive top 8 finishes, 2 major championships, and 5 wins, Patrick McDonald. How does Scottie Scheffler walk away from this one feeling?
Probably like he let it slip through his fingertips. If he had his A game, he would probably be the FedEx Cup champion and the winner at East Lake this week, because you look at his second or last 2 rounds in particular, a number of short misses on the greens, and the case of the lefts. You think about Scottie Scheffler at the onset of the year battling that hand injury that occurred on Christmas Day. He had the lefts a lot throughout the West Coast swing, got through them throughout the course of the season, even had them on the front 9 there at the PGA Championship as well. And it kind of hindered him today. You look at the first tee in particular, making a ho-hum bogey, I guess you could say, after finding his ball out of balance with the tee shot. And then on 15 as well, that was a shocking shot from Scottie Scheffler, because we seemingly never see Scottie Scheffler make mistakes with the full swing. And so although he finished 4 strokes off the pace of Tommy Fleetwood, you can easily find 4 strokes in Scottie Scheffler's last 2 rounds, let alone his entire 72 holes. But I think he'll be a happy camper, but but when really analyzing his performance this week, he'll realize, you know, if I did have my A minus type of game, I probably could be the FedEx Cup champion again.
A handful of short misses from Scottie Scheffler. Those were apparent. The way he started these rounds, you know, to start on Saturday, bogey on 1 and 2, and then find the OB line in Sundays in today's final round is jarring. I'm gonna have to go back and look. I can't remember the last time Scottie Scheffler had 2 different penalties in the same round. It just doesn't happen. This is a guy who eliminates all the risk on the golf course. He rarely hits a shot bad enough to get into that level of trouble. So it was a pretty bad round for a guy who shot 2 under and finished only a handful of strokes off the lead. I will say this, though, for this Scottie Scheffler era that we're in and how often he gets compared to Tiger Woods, we have now entered the Ben Hogan comparisons. That's how deep into the history books we are. So very good year for Scottie. I think he'll leave happy, but certainly not satisfied.
So we'll call it Rory's Slam, Scottie season, but Tommy's moment. A lot to keep track of here on the PGA Tour, but who better to do it than Rick Gehman and Patrick McDonald. Thank you, fellas. A look here at Tommy's moment of triumph and what it has taken. With a 54-hole lead, he finally sees one go. Even to start the day with Patrick Cantlay, but a winner at day's end. Tommy Fleetwood, your tour champion.